Well, back in the OG Hillbilly garage for today. It's gone through a little bit of changes. It's actually cleaned up here a bit. I've kind of got my big air compressor all hooked up and plumbed into Hillbilly Garage 2.0. Kind of moving stuff around. I'm going to kind of set this up as my metal work area. Bring some tools down. I got a shop press I'm going to probably put over here. I got my drill press I'm going to put over here. I finally got my bench grinder around here where I can actually plug it in without running a cord. So we're still going to utilize the OG Hillbilly Garage just in a slightly different way. But today, as you guys see, we have Mighty Mouse in here. And unfortunately with Mighty Mouse, I have a bad news, good news, bad news situation, which is why it's in here. So the bad news, last video you saw with Mighty Mouse, we installed the intercooler, took her for a test drive. That seemed to have solved our overheating issues for time being. We ran her quite a bit. It was doing well. It wasn't overheating, but it was still cold. And unfortunately, after that video and trying to get some more rides in to mess around and play around with the tuning a bit, we started overheating again. But some good news, I finally figured out exactly what was going on and why we were overheating. So you guys might not realize this, and if you don't, let me explain this as clear as I can. Your cooling system in your buggy works 100 times better if your radiator fan's plugged in. Yep, that's all my overheating issue has been all along. I simply, for one reason or another, I can't even remember, I had my radiator fan unplugged. And amongst the course of time, forgot I had it unplugged, and I never plugged it in. So the whole time we've been running this guy, it's been overheating. It's because our radiator fan hasn't been kicking on to draw that cold air through the radiator. So, good news. But unfortunately, that brings us to our second bad news with Mighty Mouse. Oh, poor guy. Well, last time she overheated, I did as usual. I went ahead and hurried up. I shut her down, and I left the key on so I could watch my temperature gauge drop so I knew when it was safe to head out and head for home again. Well, you guys know Mighty Mouse. You know that when the key's on, we've got that awful noisy oil pump. So while she was setting cooling, I flipped the oil pump off. One, to save my battery. Two, so I didn't have to sit there and listen to it. Well, the problem with that is then once she cooled off, I fired it up and headed for home. It's probably a 2 or 3 mile trek without the oil pump on, which means I was starving the turbo of oil and an already overheating motor. And unfortunately now I have a no boost and some grinding coming from the turbo. So that's why she's in the OG Hillbilly Garage today, because I gotta tear back into her, tear the turbo off, and check things out, see if I can't figure out what's going on. So that's what we're gonna do in this video. Hopefully it's nothing serious. I'm not burning any smoke, so I don't think I threw a bearing, because if I threw a bearing, then chances are it would have ruined the seal in there. Not a for sure thing. And I still can hear the turbo spinning in there. It's just, I don't have any boost. And like I said, we had some grinding the last time we had this guy out after I figured out the radiator fan wasn't working. So I'm gonna just pull the back off. Might be a little trickier with the Mudbuster flares on here now, but it should still be 4 main bolts. The tricky part might be getting to the tail light plug now because this is kind of blocked off. And I think while we have this tour back in this time, I'm gonna go ahead and pull my exhaust header back off because I know I got a couple leaks from my amateur-ish welding skills. My welding has gotten better, so I want to plug those holes that are in there. We'll rewrap it with exhaust tape, and then hopefully we won't have to order a new turbo. If we do, again, these VZ21 turbos are small, they're cheap. It's like a $150 turbo. If I got to order another one, it's not a big deal. That's why I kind of went with a cheap turbo for this exact reason here, for testing. That way if something happens and it grenades, as long as we don't get parts sucked in the motor, it's not a big deal because it's easily replaceable. As long as shipping doesn't hold us up in getting one due to the pandemic, of course. But anyway, let's tear into this guy and see if we can figure out what's going on with it. Well guys, I know this is going to be very hard to see, but there is definitely some carnage in here on our turbo. The blades are messed up, and I can take, and there is a lot of play. So this turbo is shot. I'm going to go ahead and pull her out so we can inspect the damage a little closer, but I'm going to go ahead and order another turbo. Alright guys, we got the turbo pulled here. I don't know if you'll be able to see any little better on the bench or not. Probably not. But there is an awful lot of play. You can see how much play we had in here. If I come here to the impeller side here, I can take and I can slide this back in and out. You hear all that play? That is not good. So that is what happened to our turbo. I'm going to go ahead and pull this off so we can take a closer look at our blades a little better. Take a look at them seals, but yep, she's done. Alright boys, let's take a look, see what our damage is. Ooh, that's pretty bad. Wowee. That impeller is shot. Look at that. It took her right down. We definitely had some play in there, and look at the movement in there in the shaft play. So I'd say this turbo's done in. Yeah, okay. Oof! Even our inducer side was hitting. You can tell by the polished edges and the scarring around the housing there. So all around, big time oof! Hey! This is a one-off build. It's never been done before. This is uncharted territory, so it's only natural you're going to run into things like this. And that's the whole point of testing, is to find these flaws, these weak areas. You got to address some issues, correct them, try again. So that's what we're going to do. Well, guys, I kind of inadvertently found, I think, what part of the problem was. I went to take my compressor wheel off and realized that the retaining nut here was absolutely loose. I tightened her up by hand, and that got rid of most of the back and forth play. So I think this little nut right here backing off, or maybe it wasn't tight to begin with, is what caused our problems. So I get a new one ordered. I'm definitely going to check that first. We're going to Loctite that and make sure that doesn't happen again. I think our seals were fine. Mighty Mouse wasn't blowing any smoke. So I think all it was that nut on the compressor wheel came loose and caused that shaft to be able to slide back and forth. And that did her in.